You ever wonder what it really takes to be a central banker? I mean, think about it. These are the people in charge of a whole country's financial system. Well, today, we're going to find out. We've got our hands on an actual entrance exam for a central bank, and we're going to walk through it together. Consider it your crash course in how to manage a nation's economy.
All right, let's just dive right in. The job description sounds simple, right? Guard the economy. But wow, the stakes couldn't be higher. We're not just talking about numbers on a spreadsheet here. We're talking about protecting the jobs, the savings, the futures of millions and millions of people. So yeah, let's treat this as your first day of training. Let's see if you've got what it takes.
Okay, so first things first. Before you can even think about running an economy, you've got to understand the institution that's actually in charge. The first part of this exam, it's all about knowing the rules of the game and, the place you're trying to get a job at. So, welcome to the central bank. Let's see what's on page 1 of your test.
So, our case study for this whole thing is going to be the Nepal Rastra Bank, or the NRB. It was established way back in 2058 on the Nepali calendar, and its mission is, well, twofold. 1, keep the economy stable. 2, make sure the public actually trusts the entire banking system. No big deal, right? We're using their exam because it gives us this amazing inside look at what a central banker really needs to have locked down.
Right. A central bank doesn't just make things up as it goes. The NRB, like any good guardian, has a set of core principles it lives by. And if you want to work there, you better know these by heart. There are 5 of them. Just 5. Any guesses what they might be? Let's find out.
So these 5 things, they're basically the bank's DNA. First up, they're in charge of monetary policy to keep prices stable. Keeping a lid on inflation so your money's worth something tomorrow. Second, they make sure there's enough cash flowing through the system so it doesn't just grind to a halt. Third, they build secure ways for all of us to make payments. Fourth, they're the big watchdog, regulating and supervising all the other banks. And number 5, the big one, all of this is to make sure you trust the system.
So who's at the top of this whole thing? That would be the governor. But here's where it gets interesting. The governor isn't elected, and they don't just get promoted up the ranks. Nope. They are appointed by the government's Council of Ministers. That tells you everything you need to know about the deep connection between a country's politics and its money. Okay, pop quiz time. This is your first real test question from the exam. Let's see if you've been paying attention. The central bank puts financial institutions into different categories, right? So, what's a Class A institution usually called? What do you think? Come on, no pressure.
And the answer is a commercial bank. If you got that right, awesome. These are just the big, everyday banks you and I use. Knowing these basic terms, it's absolutely fundamental. It's like learning the alphabet of the financial world. Hey, you're on your way.
All right, so you've got the basics of the institution down. Now we level up. A central banker isn't just a rule follower. They have to actively manage the economy. And just as important, they have to lead a whole army of people who make the bank tick. This next part is all about how you actually wield that power.
This is so important to get right. You've got 2 main levers to steer the economy. First, there's monetary policy. That's the central bank's territory. Think of it like they've got the gas and the brake pedals for the entire money supply, using things like interest rates to speed up or slow things down. Then you have fiscal policy. That's the government's job, using tools like taxes and public spending. A central banker has to use their tools to keep things balanced no matter what the government is doing.
But here's the thing. Managing an economy isn't just about abstract policies. It's about running a massive, complex organization full of people. And that brings us to a super important management principle: unity of command. Basically, it just means every single employee should have only one boss. Why does that matter here? Well, imagine a financial crisis hits. Having clear, unambiguous lines of communication can literally be the difference between keeping things stable and total chaos.
So yeah, a top-tier central banker has to be a brilliant manager. And it really just boils down to these 4 key things. First, you've got a plan. Where are we trying to take this economy? Then you organize. Who's doing what to make it happen? After that, you lead. How do you keep your whole team of brilliant economists motivated? And finally, you control. You're constantly monitoring performance, ready to step in and correct course when things start to wobble. It's a never-ending juggling act. All right, now our journey takes a bit of a darker turn. Because being the guardian of the economy isn't just about fighting inflation. It's about fighting crime. A central banker also has to be a detective, constantly on the lookout for people trying to exploit the system. The stakes?
they just got even higher. This is where it gets really interesting.
And the number one threat here is something called money laundering. It's basically the art of taking dirty money, cash from illegal stuff, and running it through the financial system until it comes out the other side looking totally clean and legitimate. A central banker's job is to spot that wash cycle in action. Because make no mistake, this isn't a victimless crime. This is the money that fuels everything from drug empires to terrorist networks.
So how do they pull it off? It usually happens in 3 stages. First up is placement. This is where the criminal dumps the dirty cash into the financial system, maybe through a bank deposit. That's your first clue. The second stage is layering. Now they start creating this incredibly complex web of transactions, wire transfers flying all over the world, shell companies, all to hide where the money came from. The trail gets really muddy here. And finally, there's integration. The now clean money is used to buy legit stuff, real estate, fancy cars, businesses, and just like that, it's back in the regular economy. Case closed, or so they hope.
And look, money laundering is the big one, but it's not the only threat. This exam is packed with questions about all kinds of common banking crimes. Things like using fake documents to get a loan, intentionally writing a check that you know is going to bounce, or even something that sounds minor, like lying about the value of your property just to get a bigger loan. A central banker has to be on the lookout for all of it, big and small.
Okay, we've covered the law, we've covered economics, we've talked management theory, and we've even dipped into the criminal underworld. It is time for the final exam. This is the moment where we see if you can pull all these different threads together and really become a guardian of the economy. You ready for this?
When you break it down, the job is just immense. It's not one role, it's like 4 jobs rolled into one. You have to be a legal expert, mastering all the rules. You have to be an economist with a clear vision for the whole country. You've got to be a great manager who can lead a huge, complex organization. And on top of all that, you have to be a security specialist, always on guard against crime and fraud. It is a massive, massive undertaking.
All right, one last question for the final exam. Let's go back to leadership for a second. Which leadership style is the one where the leader makes all the decisions by themselves without asking their team for input? Think about it. This is the final hurdle.
That would be the autocratic style. And it gets a bad rap a lot of the time, right? But the exam actually points out something really important. In a true financial emergency, like a market crash, that style can be absolutely essential. You need someone who can make fast, decisive calls to stop a crisis in its tracks.
So there you have it. We've been through the exam, you've seen the incredible range of knowledge it takes, law, economics, management, security, the whole shebang. So the final question isn't on the test anymore. The final question is for you. After seeing all this, do you think you have what it takes to shoulder the immense responsibility of guarding an entire nation's economy? Because the fate of millions could literally rest in your hands.